Today is March 6th, and I'm sitting here with my good friend Reggie Gold. And Reggie, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions because I know the chiropractic world wants to hear from you. The most important question is, what do you want to be remembered for?
That's assuming I want to be remembered. I'm not sure that I have any desire to be remembered for any particular thing. Who I am, what I stand for, is fine if people are interested. But I don't want to be remembered. I don't want to be made an icon.
But you already are.
So ask your questions.
Okay. Well, yesterday we talked about integrity. So that seems to be really high on your list.
It is. Integrity is important regardless of what kind of profession you're practicing. But much more so in chiropractic than almost anything else. If you don't have integrity, you don't have chiropractic.
That's right. Could you tell us about the most inspirational story that you can remember in your career? I know we talked about what inspired you to do lay lectures. That was such a good story. Could you share?
I don't recall what you're thinking of, but if you don't do layman lectures, you're just bloody stupid. The main thing about chiropractic is you must tell people what it is. People don't know. You don't assume that because people go to a chiropractor, they have the slightest idea what chiropractic is. Very often the chiropractor himself has no idea. So we have to settle down on things we need to tell the public. The public needs to know what chiropractic is. Right now, I think the general idea is that chiropractic gets sick people well. It's absolutely nonsense. It's not even the function or the job of chiropractic to cure things. Let's sit down and talk about what is chiropractic. When we know what chiropractic is, we'll know what we should be practicing with integrity. Of a man who had not attended my layman lecture, didn't even know I had one, didn't know anything about chiropractic at all, and he had a child who was suffering from asthma. And he was sitting in my reception room one day. He'd been a new member of the practice for about 2 weeks. And he ran into somebody who was sitting in the chair that he recognized. And he said, "Oh, I didn't know you were coming here. How long have you been coming?" And the friend said, "Oh, I've been coming about 4 years. How about you?" And he said, "Well, I've just started, no thanks to you." And the response was shock. "Why no thanks to me?" "Well, because you've known about chiropractic for 4 years and you didn't tell me about it." And this brings out a message that with knowledge comes responsibility. You who know about chiropractic have the responsibility, the moral responsibility, to tell other people. Whether they want to know or not, whether they ask or not, everybody needs to have the word so they can make an intelligent decision about their life and their health. And it's everybody's responsibility to tell other people. And if you don't tell them and they don't find chiropractic, it's your damn fault.
Over the years, Reggie, you and I have had a lot of great times and a lot of wonderful talks together about your past and B.J. Palmer and all the good stories. And I was wondering, I know I'm probably hitting a hornet's nest, but could you tell us about B.J. Palmer?
I can tell you about my impressions of B.J. Palmer. That's not necessarily telling you about B.J. Palmer himself. When anybody talks about anybody else, they give you their version of things. My version of B.J. was he was an absolute tyrant, and thank God he was. Because if B.J. hadn't been the tyrant that he was, many, many great chiropractors of the past would not have been great chiropractors. Now that's one of the things I can say about B.J. He was totally committed to the principle of chiropractic as he knew it. Remember that B.J. Palmer lived a long time ago. So he spoke about chiropractic as he knew it. As I look back on B.J.'s chiropractic, it really wasn't chiropractic at all. let's talk about the origins of BJ and the origins of chiropractic. Chiropractic was started by BJ's father. And he started with the idea that chiropractic gets sick people well. And that was BJ's idea, that people should get adjusted so that we get well. That means that all the people who are already well and don't have symptoms are denied chiropractic entirely. I think BJ was wrong in that. I think his father was wrong in that. And every chiropractor, past or present, who talks about chiropractic getting sick people well is simply missing the boat.
What was your first experience with a chiropractor?
My first experience was being treated for a condition, a medical condition. I had asthma and hay fever, and I went to a chiropractor, and I was inspired by his message. What he said was that chiropractors don't treat that disease. They don't treat any disease. And he taught me to respect the word chiropractic and what it stood for. The job of curing disease is the body's job and not the chiropractor's job. Once I learned that, I was on my way.
Did you go right to school from there?
Within 3 days of hearing the word chiropractic for the first time, I was sitting behind a desk at Palmer learning what it was.
Wow. How much did it cost you to go to school?
I don't know what it actually cost in today's dollars. I know that most of my tuition was paid by B.J. Palmer. Not to me personally, but B.J., through his other business enterprises, made enough money and used his money to reduce the cost of chiropractic education so that every student in B.J.'s day benefited from B.J.'s generosity and his ability and willingness to put that money into the training of chiropractors. So I think I paid, and I'm not sure that I'm right on this, I think I paid $240 a quarter when I first started. And that included books.
I heard somewhere that it also included room and board. Was that true?
Not for me. It was true for those students who wished room and board and for whom there was space or room at the college. BJ at one time had a brush factory above the college where the students paid for their tuition by working at making brushes, which were sold in the local community.
Wow.
Yeah.
He sounds like he just wanted people to go through school no matter what.
Many chiropractors in the early days were people that BJ had saved from prison or rescued from other things. BJ knew how important it was to train people in chiropractic, and he was extremely successful. When you think of some of the great names today that came from BJ or later on through BJ's successors at the school, BJ instilled a great ethic in chiropractic. That ethic is passed on today through people like, well, I won't even mention names, but some of the greats that we all know learned their chiropractic and their chiropractic morals through BJ and BJ's giving.
So after you were done seeking, what was your own way?
I think we'll let the world judge that.
Reggie, you and I have traveled around for many years now together, speaking on the same stages, and it always makes me crack up when I see people observing you walking down the hallway or walking into a room. You really are a legend, and it makes people nervous sometimes. But I think that the biggest question that I've heard people ask you over the years is, what do I charge for my services?
Again, that's very much a personal matter. I think most people know that I didn't charge anything. My services were given with a box on the wall, and the box on the wall offered everybody the opportunity to pay according to his or her means. Whatever the fee is, it's a barrier. And the more barriers we set in people's way, the less chance there is of doing the right thing. So I practiced with a box on the wall for my entire chiropractic career, and if I go back into practice tomorrow, it'll be again with a box on the wall. But that's my idea. That doesn't mean no other chiropractor should charge a fee which he or she thinks is right. It's all a matter of personal morality. My fees came from those people who felt they understood what they were getting and they were willing to pay for it.
How did you come up with the box on the wall idea?
Well, I really didn't come up with it. I picked it up through a fellow by the name of George Shears, and through his family. I was a very great friend of Bill Bayan, who introduced me to the principle. And once I heard it, it made total sense to me. And I took an old shoebox and cut a slot in the top and taped up the sides. And this box I tacked onto the wall, and that became my fee system from that point on.
It was a shoebox?
It was a shoebox, yeah. Until one of my patients made a fancy box, which is now in somebody else's hands. They're not using it. They didn't use the fee system, but they have the box. They have the souvenir.
Okay, so we were talking about when your car broke down and you're on your way to New York, was it, or from New York?
Well, it was right after I graduated from school. I almost had no skills other than my chiropractic, and to start a chiropractic practice doing something else to make a living didn't make sense to me, so I stopped in to see a chiropractor that I had met while I was at school.
What happened to your car? Didn't it just die on the spot?
Yes. Well, it got me here from Davenport, Iowa, which was a great miracle. And I got to Spring Valley, New York. That's where my car died. And it's never breathed since. It took its last breath on the public parking lot in Spring Valley, New York. So I started my practice in Spring Valley. I didn't know anybody except this one fellow in the next town, this other chiropractor that I had met at Lyceum. And I stopped in to see him, and I said, Gerhard, here's my story. I want to practice in the next town. I don't have any money. Can you help? And he just reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad big enough to choke a horse and peeled off $750 and stuck it in my hand and said, if you need any more, see me. And that's how I learned about the generosity of chiropractors, of this particular chiropractor. He did what he thought was right.
And it helped you to get started.
Of course, yeah. And then I set up my practice in town, and of course, setting up a practice cost a lot more than he lent me, but I put the money to good use when I lived long enough to get the practice started. I've been in town then about a month and used up all the money, and finally the office was ready for use. It was an old drugstore converted into an insurance office, and I rented half of the insurance office as my office. It was 8 feet wide and 43 feet long, a one-lane bowling alley, and I invited all the artisans to come get their payment. I'm talking about the plumbers and the masons and the painters and all the people who worked on the office to get it set up. I got their bills. I owed about $7,000. The most I could borrow from a bank was $5,000. The funny thing is, when I went to the bank to borrow money, since I had no collateral, they wouldn't lend me any money. Then I called the artisans and built this place, and I called the bank again, and I said, look at this beautiful place that I have, and they came to see it, and the bank agreed they would lend me $5,000 on that place, the same place that rejected me on 3 months earlier or a month earlier. That's how smart the banks are. Anyway, I still owed $7,000. I said to the artisans, I don't have any money to pay you. Not now. I'll pay you out of my income. So if you want to get your money quickly, you better send members of the practice in. And that's how I started my practice.
There's one way to get them in the door.
Right, yeah.
Reggie, we talked about your patients and how much they appreciated you and how much they love chiropractic. And they would do just about anything to help you. Could you talk about your chiropractic warriors?
There's really nothing to say. People who appreciate chiropractic and are willing to pay for it, just do it. I organized my patients, practice members, into a practice group. Their job was to tell other people about chiropractic, and they just did it. The patients were organized, or the practice members were organized, and hundreds of them, thousands of them, went around town talking about chiropractic every single day. And the people they talked to either accepted the message and became members of the practice themselves, or they didn't. If they didn't accept it, they just wandered off on their sick way and kept doing it. There are only two ways as far as chiropractic is concerned. Either you get adjusted regularly, and that means every member of the family, every man, woman, and child gets adjusted on a regular basis to serve his needs, or he becomes a medical victim. That's something that other people do. I'm amazed at the use of medicine, but people are still using it. Even chiropractors are using medicine or using chiropractic for medical purposes.
Just recently, we had a scare with your health, and you were not doing so well. Then you had a miraculous recovery. Would you please explain the medication and what you told the doctors?
Well, first of all, there's been no miraculous recovery. Time has taken its toll. My health has suffered. I now have congestive heart disease, great difficulty in breathing and moving around at the same time. It's getting worse every day, and that's the main reason I'm doing this interview, because I want to leave some kind of a message. I forget what the rest of the question was.
Could you please tell us what you told the doctors when they wanted you to take the medicine?
Oh, yes. They put me on a half a dozen different medications, digoxin and various heart medicines, including Lasix or furosemide. The furosemide I'm still taking because that's the way the body can use that medication to cut down on the fluid in the lungs. But all other medications I stopped. And that's when the medical people declared an emergency and said, well, you don't have very long to live. And I said, if I go back on the medications, how long do I have to live? And they had no idea. So the fact is, my so-called miraculous recovery was a miraculous improvement. The medical people found when I stopped taking the medicines, I got better. And I got better for quite a while. And it lasted for a while until I got sick again. Now it's catching up with me. And it's a matter of how much longer do we have? I have no idea. I'm just going to use up the time fruitfully and enjoyfully to spend my time with Irene and the family and enjoy it all.
Reggie, what age would you say a child should start getting checked?
At birth.
Do you think that a chiropractor should be in the delivery room?
No. But as soon as the baby is born and viable, he should have his spine checked by an expert. Now, as long as the chiropractor is an expert on the spine, he's the one to do it. But we have to train them to be experts. Instead of wasting time teaching them diagnosis, we should be teaching them how to check spines.
Reggie, you know Jacob, my son, he wants to be a chiropractor because of you and what you've taught him. What would you say to him so that he can maintain his passion going through college?
Well, the first thing is to select the right college. A college that concentrates on chiropractic rather than medical services. And to find one of those in the United States is almost impossible. Today, the best one on the scene is Sherman College, and unless we're very careful, Sherman is going to lose it. And if Sherman loses it, that means going overseas, because the New Zealand College is the only college outside of the United States that really teaches chiropractic.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you want to immerse yourself in real, true chiropractic and surround yourself with others who feel that way as well, then you go to the right college. Now, it's possible that some of the other colleges will change in the future. In fact, they are changing all the time. Sherman, as I said, started off on the right track and lost it because they went chasing the almighty dollar. They followed the teachings of another school that has no concept of what chiropractic is. That's the one you're visiting soon in Texas. As long as that Sherman follows their message, they're going to go in the wrong direction. I hope the board members of Sherman are going to be strong enough to change the direction of the school and maybe get rid of the president, because the president of the college has no idea what chiropractic is. I recently made a serious donation to that college, that is Life West, because I feel the college is moving in the right direction.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for all of your donations. I don't know if our audience knows how generous the Gold family has been, but it's been amazing.
Well, it doesn't matter if they know. The thing is that they must follow their own heart and their own intelligence to find the best school for them, depending on whether they go to school now or 3 years from now or 5 years from now. Schools are not static, they're changing all the time.
Reggie, what do the schools need to do to improve the chiropractic profession today?
Number one is stop teaching medicine and start teaching chiropractic. Most of the faculty don't know what chiropractic is. This is true of almost every school in the world. I know of one school in New Zealand which teaches chiropractic, and another one in this country which started to teach chiropractic and has recently gone off the track and started teaching more and more medicine. We're training people as medical practitioners when their legal rights and responsibilities are to practice chiropractic. Why does a person who wants to be a chiropractor have to know the correct diagnosis or treatment for any medical condition?
That's a good question.
And until the schools learn that, we can't have a good chiropractic education anywhere. We're training students to answer medical questions on a medical examination board. So everything depends upon the CCE and its stupid questions that it's forcing people to memorize the answers to, answers which are irrelevant to the practice of chiropractic. No chiropractor needs to know how to diagnose anything or to treat any disease or how to cure a disease. That's not the job of chiropractic in the first place. The job of chiropractic is merely to eliminate any vertebral subluxation, because vertebral subluxations inhibit a person's ability to function well. We need people to be able to function at their best level, not somebody else's, not the medical profession's ideal. if your body is working as best it can, I've done my job.
Reggie, can you give us some words of inspiration for future generations of chiropractors?
The same words that I would give to past generations of chiropractors and current generations of chiropractors who want to become better. If you want to become the best, you have to demand the best of yourself. So that's my message. Learn to be a better chiropractor tomorrow than you were today.
What about spreading the message of chiropractic effectively? How did you do it best?
By talking to people one-on-one and in groups and explaining chiropractic simply. People complicate chiropractic to the degree that nobody in the public understands what chiropractic is or what is the purpose of chiropractic. They don't understand that the purpose of chiropractic has nothing to do with eradicating pain or making people feel better. The job of chiropractic is only one, that is the location and identity and eventually the correction of vertebral subluxation. We understand the chiropractic message is an understanding that vertebral subluxation, when it exists, interferes with a person's ability to function at their best. As long as you have a subluxation, you can never be the best you can be. And if you want to become better at anything, you must be unsubluxated. And the job of chiropractic is to check the spine of every human being as often as is necessary to correct subluxations so that they may function at their highest possible level.